us. I apologize for the delay. We were just getting ourselves all situated. We have a fabulous panel for you all. I am Lisa Hospitali, a program manager at the Center for Inclusive Education, and I'm excited to welcome you to our Women in Chemicals panel. As we celebrate Women's History Month, we honor the pioneers who paved the way for more inclusive industries and reflect on the progress still to come. Today, you'll learn that you do not have to be a chemist to thrive in the chemical industry. In fact, this career path and today's discussions are intended for all genders, as diverse perspectives are essential to global innovation. We are joined by Women in Chemicals, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering women by focusing on pipeline, retention, and development to foster a true sense of belonging. To lead us in this conversation, I'm pleased to introduce our moderator, Caroline Thomas, education coordinator for Women in Chemicals and business development professional at Mission Chemicals. She is deeply passionate about the pivotal role the chemical sector plays in global growth and sustainability. And thank you for joining us today, Caroline.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. I think I want to hire you to do the introductions for all of our events. This is amazing. Well, so honored to be here and honored to discuss these important topics with you all and introduce our panelists. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Caroline, and I work for a company called Mission Chemical for my day job. I'm in business development. It's a specialty distributor based out of the Houston, Texas area. We focus primarily on the oil and gas industry as well as HI&I. So it's incredible to see how some chemicals go in all these different industries. I learn something new every day with all of my customers, and it's just an honor to be here and share more about it. I stumbled upon the industry and think it's the coolest thing ever. So excited to share more. I'd also like to introduce Kate Nagel. She is joining us. She has moved into the education chair, and this is her first time joining our Careers in Chemicals event as our new chair, and has a wealth of knowledge to bring to this panel. And Kate, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm coming in from the opposite side of all of this. I did nanoparticle research in my undergraduate and then realized I wanted to help other people understand how amazing chemistry is. And so I was a chemistry teacher for almost 10 years and then moved into working with teachers at a national level, doing workforce development and educator training to show people that chemistry is like problem solving and messy and fun, and it connects to everything else in life. So it's not just being in a lab. And so I'm really excited to be doing more of that work here with Women in Chemicals.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. So want to do a brief overview of what Women in Chemicals is. As Lisa mentioned, we are a nonprofit. We are focused on creating connection and building community within this wonderful industry. We have several programs that we have launched. Everything is free to our members. So you'll see a link later where you can join in on the email list, be part of this community, and have access to all of the resources that we are providing thanks to incredible sponsors in the industry. So we have mentorship programs. We also host virtual events that we call Generation Female. These are focused on certain topics that we experience. And again, while it's Generation Female, there's always a focus on female. This is available to all. I think you have to have the full community to really see impact and change. We also have my personal favorite and plug is the book club. It's where we read professional development books. We get together on a quarterly basis to discuss those together. And it's turned into a really good, tight-knit group of individuals. And we have people from India and South Africa to California all over. And it's incredible to hear their perspectives. And then we launched a conference. So we had our second annual conference last year. We'll have our third here in Miami in September. Would love to see some of your faces there. We also host a podcast called Woman of the Week. This is a platform where women are able to share their stories. So if you're looking to get to know more women in the industry, you can listen to the podcast. I've personally made incredible mentors and connections by listening to a podcast and be like, wow, I really related to this person, and reached out and just said, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you. So it's been some really neat networking for me to continue to build more community in the industry. We also host these careers and chemicals events. We have a lunch and learn that we offer to our corporate sponsors. We just tell them pretty much what we're doing right now in more depth. And then we also, on the pipeline education, we host these virtual events, and we are building out a job board that we can start to continue to build connection from candidates to employers into finding your new home in the industry. So that's a high level overview of what WIC does. And now I will pass it over to Kate for the next section.
All right, amazing. So understanding that a lot of you are coming from different places and maybe the chemical industry isn't something you're that familiar with. So if you can join the QR code on your phone, if you are able, we'd love to hear a little bit about where you are coming from. So when you pop into there, you should see the question, when you think of the chemical industry, what careers do you think of? And I'll give everybody a minute. We're just going to ask a couple of questions there before we go into sort of a brief introduction of the chemical industry and what it includes. So I'm seeing research scientist, chemist, cosmetics, project manager. This is great. So I see a lot of things that are based on specifically instrumentation, and the cosmetics is the one piece that I'm seeing that's more external facing, like, oh, these are some of the things we do. So we're going to jump to the next question. Oh, give us a second there. And the next question I have is, have you considered the chemical industry in your exploration? So is this something you've already been looking at? Are you applying to roles? Have you thought about it, but you haven't really explored it, or have you not considered it previously? Awesome. I am both sad and excited to see that the majority of people here have not considered the chemical industry before. I'm sad because I think everyone should know that it's an incredible opportunity, but I'm excited because you're in the right place. All right, so if you take a look, I'm going to put up another slide on this piece, which is just a space for you to add questions if they're coming up for you while you're listening. You don't need to look at your phone or anything like that during the rest of this next area, but feel free to add a question or vote if a question really resonates with you as we're going through the next parts of the presentation. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the chemical industry. So we can go to the next slide. And I think one of the things that people don't realize is the chemical industry is all over the place. It is so many different things in our lives because it's the science behind everything. The chemical industry is where the materials that do almost everything we engage with every day are used. So a lot of you have studied chemistry, a lot of you are in a higher level degree, but understanding that the chemical industry isn't just the big names you know, or when you think of big chemical, it covers so many different places. We are intricately tied into medicine and batteries and agriculture, and as you guys said, cosmetics, but also the semiconductors and the solar panels, alternative energy sources, foods and beverages, everything that makes our regular life possible is a part of the chemical industry. So what this means is it's not just about roles as a bench chemist or instrumentation. It is so many different opportunities. So we're going to go to the next slide. So if you have, and this is great because I saw any opportunities for current PhD students in chemistries, where could chemistry take you in the chemical industry, you say? Well, let me tell you a little bit about that. So there are different levels of education that can reach to you to different areas in the chemical industry. There's always the formulation chemistry where you're thinking about that bench chemistry, thinking about product development. There's process chemistry where you might go into thinking about how things that already exist are going to be produced in more sustainable ways or more efficient ways. There's health and safety, quality assurance. And I would say that the process chemistry, formulation chemistry, and a lot of the industrial management, you might need your PhD for those things. And then there are other places where there are a lot of opportunities for growth, and your PhD will support that work. It's not necessarily going to be required on an opportunity description, but it might be somewhere where you feel so prepared and can be more successful because of the studies you've done. So a little more detail on all of those different places you can go in the next slide. So here is what I sort of saw from all of you when I asked, like, what do you think of when you think of the chemical industry? We saw the research and development. We're really in a lab. We saw some of the government and academia that you're probably more familiar with if you haven't been looking at the chemical industry much. But if we go to the next slide, careers in the chemical industry span so many different areas of work. And coming from a background that's comfortable or literate in chemistry means that you will be more ready and more attractive in the industry than any other applicants. So if you have that science literacy and you decide you don't want to do chemistry and you want to go into communications or marketing or management and leadership, having that literacy of the chemistry side of things is going to make you a stronger candidate and give you an opportunity for growth at a faster pace than even your colleagues within the industry. And why might that be helpful? Well, let me tell you, if we go to the next slide, you can see that across the board, the chemical industry versus the national average of all industries in the US, generally speaking, has about a 10% higher pay scale starting point and growth opportunity. What I find really, this is all, by the way, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's not just something we made up. But what I find really interesting is it's consistent for those of you who like data across the mean and the median averages. So that means that it's not just there are a couple of really high salaries in the chemical industry that are pulling up those salary averages. It means that the median is also 5 to 15% higher on average. So the average person working, like the middle person, the middle salary for that role is much higher. And this is true across all of the levels. So you can see here we've got research, development, operations and manufacturing, all the quality and compliance and health and safety. And if you go to the next slide, you can see the same thing with some even larger margins for all of the sales and marketing and management and leadership. I have the methodology paper for this as well, if anybody decides they want to follow up and say, hey, how did you get those numbers? And then we can go to the next slide for us to sort of think about, because I know for people who aren't deeply familiar with the chemical industry, and I've run into this a lot in my career connecting the chemical industry and the public goods sector and social impact. The chemical industry can get a bad rap in terms of environmental sustainability as well. But the truth of the matter is, this is where we're and how we're going to reach a more sustainable, climate resilient future is through industry, because that's where the funding is coming from that goes into R&D annually. It is where we are actually enabling the energy transition, because all of those alternative energies come from research and development in the chemical industry, and as well as all of the circular innovation and sustainable sourcing. And so just something to keep in mind, depending on what your thoughts had been previously and what might bring you into being more interested in the industry. And so with that in mind, let's go over and hear about some women who entered the industry through their PhDs. And I'm going to pass it back to Caroline.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. It's fun to see that data and that information across the board, no matter what. So I have the privilege of being able to introduce some of our speakers today, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves, because why hear it from me when you can hear it directly from them? So We'll start with you, Crystal. Please give us a brief introduction, alumni.
Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Lewis Luke. I am currently the Director of Industry Market Managers for Home Care I&I. Another term to call it is Principal Management. I am based in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I earned my PhD in inorganic chemistry at the Stony Brook University, so I am an alumni. Very excited to be here. It truly feels like a full circle moment. We were asked to share a fun fact about our company. One thing I want to share is that Brenntag, our company footprint is pretty much global. So much so that on any given day, a Brenntag truck is making a delivery every 13 seconds somewhere around the world. So that's just the kind of footprint we have, and I'm so excited to be with you all today.
That's really cool. This is a selfish question because I really love hearing the fun facts, by the way, but that's really neat. Love that. Thanks, Crystal. Sandeep, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. So my name is Sandeep Kaur. I am working as a sales engineer, company Henkel. So my specialty is in the surface treatment chemicals, living in Indiana, USA. And I did my PhD in organic analytical chemistry in India. And then I moved to South Korea for my postdoc research, moved to Canada, another postdoc, and then started my industry career as a R&D scientist. And then I moved to more commercial side into sales. And I'm also pursuing my MBA program right now part-time. So all I want to say in my career, it is the continuous learning all the time. And that's the mindset I have all the time here. And the fun fact about Henkel is we are 150-year-old company, and we are pioneer in adhesive technology. Our products keep safe babies in the diapers up to the keep safe the aircraft in the sky. So we are all over in the consumer to B2B side. Yeah. Thank you.
That's amazing. Well, what a journey you've had, and I can't wait to hear more about it too. All right, Pooja, let's hear from you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to join this very exciting panel. And so I am also at Brenntag, just as Crystal had mentioned. I'm the content strategy market lead for HI&I. So that's home care, institutional, and industrial cleaning products for Brenntag North America. And then I'm also on the Women in Chemicals leadership team as a conference marketing coordinator based in New Jersey. And I earned my PhD from Penn State University. I did it in organic chemistry, so total synthesis of natural products. And I did it straight after I graduated from Villanova University in a bachelor's in chemistry. So you asked for a fun fact. So for Brenntag, I thought it was interesting that we started out as an egg distributor. I don't know if you knew that, Crystal, either, but we're egg distributors, and then they went into pharmaceutical ingredient distributing and eventually into chemicals. So I thought it was interesting, the evolution of how the company ended up in chemical distribution.
That is fascinating. I did not know that about Brenntag either, in this global company that started as an egg distributor. How cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Haley, would love to hear from you.
Thank you. So Haley Staveness here. I am water treatment sales specialist at Brainerd Chemical, and I am based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I got my PhD from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, directly out of undergrad as well, in organic chemistry. And then I actually had a different life before coming into kind of the chemical industry and sales. I taught at Michigan for a few years and then was a assistant professor at a small school in West Virginia called Shepherd University before I kind of converted my life into sales and started with that. So fun fact about Brainerd, it's a smaller family-owned manufacturer and distributor, and we are one of the few companies that barrels and distributes 99% nitric acid. So I don't know if any of you have handled that before, but much smaller scale on what I'm used to, let alone seeing a barrel. So when I saw the spill kit associated with that at our manufacturing site, I was, in shock. So a little bit different scale than I think most of us are used to. So
That is really neat. And I can imagine what that spill kit looks like. And I don't want to be near it, so thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah. Not part of my job. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here, and we'll be able to start our panel discussion. And awesome. Well, thank you all so much again for joining. Wanted to kind of talk through just like why you chose the chemical industry as a whole and how you started and chose your career path. So we have a handful of questions. We'll give you all time to be able to answer. We are going to have, for everybody participating, we do have a Q&A. So if you have questions that pop up, feel free to throw them in the chat now. And whenever we get to the Q&A, we can reach out. But when we also do Q&A, you can raise your hand and answer then. So Haley, I'm going to start with you on the first question. How did you first learn about the chemical industry as a whole?
Yeah. So again, I had that little bit different background in academia. So I think my first experience was as a customer. We had different chemical distributors or lab product distributors kind of reaching out to us when I was in grad school. Kind of was my first experience noticing it, whether they're loitering the hallways or trying to email you, get a hold of your Ph.D. advisor. And then when I was teaching and doing things like that myself, I learned, I need to reach out and be getting quotes and getting better deals and things like that, kind of learning it from the customer side. And so when I decided to pivot out of academia and, see what did I want to be when I grew up, because I always kind of just followed the path. My family is all in sales, none of them chemicals or laboratory products, in finance and golf actually. And so they jokingly said, my little brother goes, Haley, you're delightful. You'll be good. You'll be fine, interacting with people. So the joke was that I kind of joined the family business, but with my own flavor on it. So that was kind of, how I thought about even entering it. And I was fortunate enough to be hired pretty quickly and kind of really think about things from the other side. So kind of thinking even more about not just what I was buying, but there's all these different levels. I work for a chemical distributor now or manufacturer kind of from the bottom versus my first job right out of academia was laboratory products, which is kind of a little bit further down the end of the line in terms of who's selling who to products. So I learned a little bit more about the entire life cycle of where stuff is made to, when we actually sell it to the end user, depending on the product or things like that. So definitely had a little bit more of that. And yeah, one of my dogs is behind me, so there will be 4 in the house by the end of the day. So
best assistant. Mine's on the couch next to me. So.
Yeah, always.
Awesome, wonderful. Well, yours too, Lisa. Love it. We've got and we have some honorary cats that join a lot of our calls too. So, Sandeep, would love to hear from you. How did you first learn about the chemical industry?
Yeah, so it's quite my story, probably a little bit different from because I grew up in India, not in North America. So the system was kind of a little bit different what we have here. So when I have an option to choose the career where I could go, I grew up in a small town where we do not have much resources and much mentorship, what I could go for. I have a passion. I love chemistry. I had another passion. I love biology. But when I was choosing one over the other, but the biology was getting divided into botany and zoology, which I didn't want to. And so I was like, chemistry is what I am so passionate about. So I just chose the chemistry in that way. And then that was kind of, I would say, the start of my career being as into the chemistry, because my chemistry was what we call as the honors chemistry. So that means like starting from my bachelor's, it's like, I would say 80% is courses like chemistry. So like 11 years of my career being bachelor's to master's to PhD, it's all chemistry I learned. So but what about the exposure into chemical industry was like, when I was doing my master's research project, that's where I got so much interested in research, because the idea was behind is thinking critically, problem solving mindset up. That's where I got so much lured about being a chemist. And it was a clear path for me going to industry because I hate teaching. So it was so easy. But the irony is I got married with an academic who loves teaching. So we are quite opposite that way. So that was where very much clear path for me. Like I would go to chemical industry and I was passionate about being a research chemist. But anyways, I changed my career because that's the speciality of the chemical industry. You are basically always having the problem solving mindset up, either in the lab or when you are facing a complex problem with your client. So you are not just the scientist in the lab, but you are the scientist in the world where you are solving the problem that actually matters to millions, not just few people. So that's how I landed in chemical industry.
I appreciate you solving a lot of our problems that I don't even know we have. So awesome. Pooja, how did you decide on the chemical industry?
Yeah, my story is just a little different from Haley and Sandeep, but I fell in love with chemistry in school. I just had so many fun teachers. They made it so exciting. And then eventually, in my last year of high school, I was trying to decide between biology and chemistry for college. And I took a class called biochemistry. Ironically, it was half the year was biochem and half the year was straight organic synthesis. And so I thought, this is just wonderful. It just grabbed me. I just had this natural affinity towards the subject. And I said, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so I got into chemistry as an undergrad at Villanova. And yeah, just loved it and just kept going and getting a Ph.D. and eventually fell into the chemical industry.
That's awesome. I fell in love with chemistry in high school too, but I didn't have teachers that really pushed me into like, this is an actual career path for you. And I find it funny for me that I've ended up in the chemical industry because I can look back at all of these like signs that were like, do this, do this, do this. And I'm envious of all of y'all's studies, by the way. So, Crystal, how about you? How do you find the industry as a whole and coming in?
Yeah, so I think about high school, and actually, I didn't like chemistry in high school. It wasn't until I started with my bachelor's that I was recruited into the chemistry department by the chair at the time. Um, and that was mainly because I was thinking I wanted to be a medical doctor. So
Hmm?
he found a way to kind of convince me to say, oh, biochemistry is a good fit because maybe you can if you're still interested in doing that. So that was the opening for me. Then, of course, went through academia, but always felt in my mind I wanted to go into the chemical industry, whether it was for me. I always had a passion for personal care. So I was looking at the L'Oreals of the world, the Estee Lauders, and that for me was where I wanted to go. So it would take some time to actually get into the personal care industry. Um, but at least during that time, the seeds were already being planted from Oakwood University, then into Stony Brook, and then moving into my postdoc. The seeds were being planted, and I'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I was like, that's the perfect segue into the next question of, when you were evaluating going into industry after your bachelor's or into grad school, what were some things you took into consideration that drove your decision there? And I'll
Yeah,
start
so
with
for
you,
me,
Crystal.
yeah, so for me, it was really grad school. I actually did my postdoc at Brookhaven National Lab, so not far from Stony Brook University through the AGET frame program for postdocs at the time. And I was there for about 6 to 7 months, and call it a quarter life crisis that I had because I didn't feel passionate doing nuclear physics at the time. But I also wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I had to really take some time to reflect as to what I was passionate about. And when I did that, the answer for me was that I wanted to use the science that I was learning to have a direct impact to those around me. So that meant If it was a personal care product, I wanted to be able to show my family this is the product that I have made and here are the benefits. Versus at the time, the science that I was doing was going into a paper, which isn't a problem, but it's kind of hard to then explain to your family all this work that you're doing. So for me, I just wanted something that had a more direct translation. And so that's when I made the decision to become a senior formulation chemist at Evolve by Nature in Massachusetts. So I then moved from New York to Massachusetts to pursue that dream.
That's awesome. I loved just like the recognition to do that and how you wanted to just take that and do something very tangible to that. And I also have some personal care questions later. Um, well, Sandeep, would love to hear how you considered as you have, and you're now doing your MBA. So that's also something fun to learn about how you made those decisions in your education.
Yeah, so when as I mentioned, I started before too. When I started my bachelor's, I never ever think of I'll go for a PhD. That was never like a long term not thinking. I'm not that kind of person like, oh, these are the steps I want to take for my career. When I started the bachelor's, I was like, finish bachelor's right after the master's, because in India at that time, bachelor's is not as a good enough degree that can land you a good job, all honesty. So definitely I want to go for a master's. But then after master's, it was the thing like, oh, either to go industry or to academia or just like grad school. So I have three options to choose from. But when I was doing my project, it was so interesting to do it. Like it was kind of feeling I'm a scientist for sure, like even if it's under the guidance of a PhD, but it gave independent, I would say, the critical thinking mindset up. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I love the most. It's challenging, you're solving something. So I started my PhD. And it was rewarding, good publications into the international journals. I think I have like, now I don't remember, like probably 9 or 10 peer-reviewed publications. And then I found in India, it was so hard getting the chemicals on time. It was taking so much time to get the chemicals. So I didn't want to be in the environment where you have to wait for your research to get done. So I started like, oh, I want to go somewhere. I want to go for the postdoc. So that's I ended up in South Korea, which was really interesting from the personal and professional perspective. And then when I came in Canada, that was very struggling as an immigrant, as a scientist, being in North America. So I wanted to start my industry career, but the thing was there, it's like, do you have Canadian experience? Which I did not. So even I wanted to go to industry, but I started as a research scientist in Canadian University to get the experience. So, but side by side, I was looking the industry job. So I landed up in a job where we were working on the surface treatment chemical for the aerospace industry mainly. And my role was 50% R&D and 50% technical service. But that was my first time after spending a year. Actually, I am more good in technical commercial side, which I never knew about myself. Yeah. And that's where I would say kind of moment where because I always think myself as a lab scientist. And I was so passionate about that career, which I was thinking I would never, ever change in my life. I'll be lab scientist whole time. But when I got exposure talking to client after even like within a year of my career there, then I was like, oh my gosh, how being a chemist, I'm solving a real world issues, which actually applicable. So that's where I got more passionate. And then the career pivot into sales business development was not easy because PhDs come with a stereotype being a nerdy. And this is the honest. I heard that from people.
The best nerds. Come on.
Even I hear from people right now when I am being employed in this job. Why are you doing it? I'm like, this is what I'm passionate about doing it, because I don't want to take too much time, but I have really interesting story, but I'll definitely share that story to our people, like how PhDs can be so good in sales. Before we end this panel, I will definitely share that. So yeah, that's how it is. And the another thing I want to, because right now we have the people here, there is a really interesting article published in Nature in 2021. If you are choosing your career in academia or industry, they have studied a survey on 32 scientists, and 64% scientists said 64 scientists are very satisfactory for their career in industry, and 42% scientists are very satisfactory for their career in academia. I'm not against academia, but somehow this is actually the real studies that published in Nature. So just keep in mind. Yeah.
That's interesting. Lisa, have you all seen, put you on the spot, have you seen an article like that before? No. Okay. Interesting. We might have to dig into that one too.
Mhm.
I'll share the link of the article for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to put Haley on the spot, who has this background between academia and industry now too. So just kind of curious how you did the school that you made, but decisions that you made in your school and kind of how you made that transition. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't necessarily know that grad school was like the be all end all option, but when I went to college, I loved chemistry, organic chemistry. I knew I liked it to begin with, but I loved the teachers. And I was like, oh, I thought maybe I wanted to be a teacher. Now I know I want to do it at the college level. And oh, that requires a PhD. And so great to find out that grad school for chemistry is more or less paid for, which I made sure to advertise anytime I was teaching students later on, because they don't know. And my dad was also like, oh, more student debt. And I was like, no, we got you. We picked the grad school that helps with that. But when I got to grad school, I thought again right away, I still really want to be a big research professor at a big school. And I worked for a faculty member who was in her second year, and I saw how she lived and breathed and was at the university. It was a big school too, an R1. So I was like, I don't quite want that life. So maybe I'll look at industry. And when I think industry, when I was in grad school at the time, it was bench chemistry, not the corporate side of things and the many other positions that Kate talked about, in the beginning presentation. So there's so much more to it that I think I didn't know about, which is so great that we're advertising this today to say whether you want to go into it directly or not. But I kind of found out that there's this thing called PUIs in smaller schools, which I didn't necessarily have experience at. And so that focused on more teaching, which I did and still do love that side of it, which is probably why I like to talk so much and I do well in sales. But
and you can teach. Everybody needs to learn.
Correct. So sometimes I quote unquote teach my customers, and in many ways, customers are like students. I just unfortunately don't have a syllabus to point to anymore when they ask questions or do things. But it was, I kind of thought to myself, oh, so I don't want to be at this big school. And then I'm like, I don't really love bench chemistry that much just to do it for doing it. I'd rather work with people more, and you often have to go do bench chemistry for 5 to 10 years. Before you have those opportunities to be promoted in positions where you get to do stuff like that. So I kind of went the PUI route. And while I did love that in many senses, I'm sure many of you know, you don't get the option to really choose where you go for those jobs. And so I took my family out to West Virginia for a few years, out from the Midwest where we're from. And so part of me was not loving that aspect of where we were and how much I was working, and that satisfactory thing that Sandeep mentioned. I mean, academia doesn't pay as well. And not that everything is about money. At the end of the day, you kind of think about, what am I doing this for? And it's taking me away from my family or things that I like to do, or you remember that you're a human person and you have more interest than what you were doing in grad school, hiding in your little hole. I think for part of me, at least, looking outside to now, quote unquote, industry for me, the corporate side of things, at least in sales, has given me a little bit of that back. And while I miss parts of academia and teaching and working with students, I'm able to find opportunities like this where I can get a little bit of that, and maybe one day I'll teach one class on the side for fun. But, I think there's you kind of have to balance what are your priorities in life. There's more to it than kind of those straight and narrow lanes that they choose for you. So my eyes have opened kind of every step of the way a little bit more and a little bit more to say there's other options, there's more I can do with it. There's no job that's perfect, so finding as many things that make you happy and that you're interested in. That's kind of how I ended up here and how I decided to keep choosing the next step. Some of it
Well,
were
it sounds
failures.
like,
So
yeah,
pivoting out of it was hard to choose and say, I've done all this work towards this and I didn't need a PhD to be in this position, but it sure helps.
I imagine so. Like I said, I'm very envious of y'all's background, but it also sounds like your academic background and going into teaching is also a foundation to the next thing. So every choice that you've had in every career move, if you go into teaching, you can take those skills, that set, and also pivot into something else down the line. So I I'm somebody that doesn't love to be pigeonholed. I love options. And I think what's neat about this panel is whichever decision and where you start isn't the forever decision always. I'm lucky I've stayed in the same company for 10 years. I've also held 5 different official roles with doing other things too. So there's many ways that you can kind of use where you start and kind of build on top of that too. Pooja, I'd love to hear from you and kind of combine a couple questions here, but deciding factor of moving into the industry, what's kept you here, and kind of what surprised you the most about it.
Yeah, so I guess I could start off with my background. So both of my parents were very much into health. So my dad was a psychiatrist. So I saw that side of things, the medical side, and always talked about health as well, take care of your health. And then my mother, she brought in a different aspect of medicine where using natural products, right? So if you have a sore throat, for example, a lot of people take mixtures of ginger and honey. Ginger is known to be an anti-inflammatory. So I thought it was so interesting that you could just step outside, extract these compounds from, plants and marine life and, cure all kinds of illnesses. So that really fascinated me. And I think that's probably what drove me to go into science and chemistry. And I knew that's what I would do at some point. So just like, Sandeep saying, oh, biology or chemistry, I don't know, because I like both of them. And then, I got into chemistry, as I explained before. But then I got into undergrad, and I wasn't sure because do I want to follow in my father's footsteps and be a medical doctor? Do I want to study further in chemistry? I don't know. So I prepared for both. So for the medical school side, I took all the requirements, the biology and all of that, the prereqs to be pre-med. And then I also was fortunate to get into a highly competitive volunteer program where I got to do multiple rotations in a hospital setting. And I took the MCATs, which my scores were abysmal, I have to say. But anyway, and then on the PhD side, I was able to do some summer research as well as research during the school year because I was funded by the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. So I had a fellowship there. So I got some good experience in the lab, and then I took the GREs, which, surprise, surprise, flying colors, almost aced them. And I was like, okay, so this is the direction I need to go, right? But in addition to all these exams and stuff, there was one day I was on a rotation in the hospital, and I saw a man who was hooked up to a lot of tubing. So it kind of reminded me of an apparatus that I had worked on in the lab. And I thought to myself, do I want to work on a man or do I want to work on a flask? And the answer was very clear. I was like, yeah, I need to go towards the flask. So I ended up getting my PhD. And I knew it was strange. I knew as soon as I opened that first drawer and I saw all that lovely glassware, and I was like, yes, this is all mine. I was thinking, one day I do want to transition out. I just don't know when, but I do. So I knew that. So I feel like, as Haley was saying, your priorities keep changing. You want to listen to your intuition. What signals are you getting? Listen to your inner voice, because that will always guide you in the right direction. So I ended up doing a couple of postdocs in the UK. I wanted to try something different. I wanted to travel, adventure, and all of that. wanted to see how they do things because we had so many postdocs from the UK and China and Korea and all that. So I thought that was very interesting. So then I got my start over there. I went to medchem. I transitioned into industry, did medicinal chemistry for a while. Then I got into process chemistry, where I was doing safe scale up of active pharmaceutical ingredients, so API. And then I ended up transitioning from the technical to the commercial side, because with every role that I had a bit of business development or marketing or something on the side. And I really enjoyed that aspect of the industry. So I wanted to learn more. And then I ended up in sales and marketing, and I'm doing marketing at Brenntag. So, and then you said what surprised me, right, of the industry? Yeah, so I don't really have a lot to say about that, because I feel like from the beginning, from the classes and everything, it was always male heavy. There were more women. I think in medchem, I feel like I had seen more like maybe parity there. But I think process chemistry in the manufacturing environment, that's where I saw a stark contrast between men and women. There was definitely a smaller group of women there. But otherwise, I'm sure the other ladies have more insights for you as far as surprising things.
Yeah, well, love it. What a journey. And it's always so fascinating to hear. And I love that part about trusting your intuition and paying attention. And like Haley too, you've mentioned, and really everybody that you've talked about your different roles is being open to the next thing, and putting yourself out there and listening to that. And Crystal, would love to hear from you. What's kind of kept you in the industry, anything that surprised you, what other roles you want to share?
Yeah, I think what's kept me in the industry is it's ever evolving. So, as I started as a cosmetic formulation chemist at Evolved by Nature in Massachusetts, that was a very interesting time. You had to do 5 ingredients, 12 ingredients or less, and it had to be all natural ingredients. So that in and of itself was a challenge. But a good one nevertheless. I think that's the thing that's always kept me going, is that there's always challenges and things that you can fix. And so when I moved into Rhode Island as a director of research and innovation for personal care, that was right in the midst of COVID. So having to get secondary suppliers when a lot of our suppliers at the time were overseas, and getting more domestic suppliers, just that whole initiative, and organizing and coordinating those kinds of meetings just to ensure that, products are, your bar soaps, all of those products are going to customers with any supply chain hitch. So always really good to see the challenges, and always rising to those challenges is what has kind of kept me in the business. I mean, now we have the Middle East conflict, which is also having in some cases, it feels like it could be a COVID 2.0, and in other cases, we're still watching to see how this evolves, right? So, another potential challenge there, but also excited for the opportunities, because that's how I've always seen a challenge as really an opportunity of how do we pivot and do something new for the betterment of the company. What I was surprised by in the industry was just, and what I would tell myself in the beginning of my career, is how important executive presence is, and how that would help in your career and in your role, and being very careful what you say and how you say it, right? So as a female going into industry, you find that men really have a way of speaking that they instantly understand where the other person is going. And I find that we as women, we just have a different way of communicating. Not that it's bad, but how do we communicate in a way that still gets our point across and moves the needle, and we're seen as equal? So I think that's something that it's not easy, even as I say, oh, I wish I could tell my younger self, it's not easy to even describe what that means without the experience, right? So that's one of them. And then the other thing that I think would be a bit easier is just be a problem solver. I think that happens when you go into your PhD anyways, you really learn how to critically think and solve problems. And that becomes critical in the chemical industry because there's so many different challenges. How do you think outside the box? And really do something that hasn't been done before and actually get all your key stakeholders to buy in to this new way of doing things, this new way of thinking. So I think those are like the two things that are slightly surprising, but things that I would tell myself just to be mindful of in the industry.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, everybody's nodding their heads along when you were talking about the critical thinking and taking that into your role. I'm going to jump down. I know we have a little, y'all don't know, but we have an order of questions here, but I really want to ask and hear from everybody, what are some of the most important skills, experiences, and knowledge, aside from your PhD, and again, from your PhD, though, that gave you a leg up in, your first role? I just would love to hear those. What would you tell your younger self kind of questions here? So, Pooja, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so there's just so many, skills that are transferable from your PhD. You've got all this strategy, continuous improvement, optimization, creativity. You're always attention to detail. I mean, I could go on. Your storytelling, you learn a lot how to tell your scientific story according to the audience that you are speaking to. You would speak to professors in a different manner than you would college students or high school students or your peers in PhD. So all of those things are so essential, communication and all of that is so essential for any industry, really. But in addition to all of those skills that you do learn in your PhD, I think also having good relationships is definitely key. I mean, you can transfer that to having good relationships with your clients. So I've always had good relationships with my colleagues and other people. So I think that always helps. Networking, of course, and now the job industry is so difficult to get a job these days. I would encourage everyone to try to get a referral, which you can if you have good relationships. So, yeah.
Yeah, which all of us are great relationships to start this part of the panel too. Sandeep, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so as Pooja mentioned about the transferable skills, so I would say it's the language, how you present. You probably all like not the probably you have already those skills, but how you show up your skills when you are applying for a job, that matters the most. How you show up on your resume. There are like 3 or 4, I would say, the keywords that have to have on your resume and that you already have it. The first one, I would start with the project management. Every PhD chemist has experience with project management because you know how to work with the limited resources. I know academia doesn't matter how much funding you get, you always have limited resources. You know how to work with. You work with multiple deadlines at the same time. So you are also doing different research project at the same time. So this is what you do is actually the project management. And second thing is the data analysis experience. You already go through the complex data sets. You know how to interpret that. That's your data analysis experience. The third one, I would go for the cross-functional team experience. You are working with your advisor, you are working with your colleague, you are working with your undergrad at the same time. This is one of the essential skills in industry, the cross-functional teams experience. The fourth one that you know, but you do not know how to do it, it's telling your storytelling to the non-technical audience. But you do all the time. How you do it? When you talk to undergrad, when you talk to your family, you tone down your whole research. This is exactly you need to do when you are talking to HR for your first interview. So these are kind of 4 critical points that you have, but you just need to change the language. And the hardest part for me when I change my CV to resume, it was my blood and sweat, which was on probably 2 pages, my publication. And I have to put that in one sentence. That was hardest. But that's what you need to do if you want to go to industry. And I am passionate about mentorship. And I was the mentorship program coordinator with Women in Chemical for a year. Doesn't matter, I'm out of my official role, I'm still a part of Women in Chemicals. So
Always.
and I am also working with doing the mentoring for grade 10 student through the Society of Canadian Women in Science and Technologies. And non-officially, I don't know how many students I helped during whole 10 years, because the most of the women who are Indian who moved to North America, they reach out to me. So these are the key points that I discussed and that I learned. And I learned American Chemical Society is a great website. It's a great website. Mm-hmm. And they have, I would say, 50% off what they charge to industry, student rate. So I would say sign up for that website, American Chemical Society. You will get connected with so many industry professionals. And then you can talk to them, and then you can see what's industry resume looks like, what's the academic CV looks like. So, and I will also throw some of the LinkedIn profile who are actually working, who all are PhDs. They are necessarily not the chemist. They are more into the biochemistry side, but they are helping lots of PhD students who are actually doing the PhD, want to go to the industry. They are not into academic specialist, but who wants to go into the industry. So I'm going to throw those 3 or 4 LinkedIn profiles that can help you how you are going to navigate your PhD skills into the industry job. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sandeep. Haley, I saw you nodding along, particularly on that, taking your CV to a resume and such, but would love to hear from you in terms of the important skills and things like that.
Yeah, that was painful. I mean, and I had just completed like my 3-year tenure track review, passed it with flying colors. And so I had this huge package and I got to boil it down to 1 or 2 pages. So I think the biggest takeaway, and we've talked about a lot of these already, is, you know, yes, there's a stereotypical, someone has a PhD, they're nerdy, and people said it to me right away, and they can't communicate or interact. And I think and some people I like that. I mean, everyone has interacted with those people, but if you can communicate, you can talk, right? That's half the battle. But it's really, if you can do that, you can translate everything. So when it came to, it's just terminology. I'm just learning a new vocabulary coming into this, right? Yeah, sure. I had to really remember what revenue versus profit and stuff was and learn that a little bit more. I never took a business class, but you know, I figured out, sorry about that. One of the dogs was very excited.
Amazon must be there.
Yeah, you know, and we have a path in front of our house. We get a lot of walkers. Very excited.
Love it.
But I mean, it was just learning new terminology. And I didn't get a PhD in my very specific title, you know, that will go right over even, you know, other chemists had, because everybody learns their own specific topic, right? I got a PhD in problem solving. So I learned that I can figure anything out. I can, you know, there's nothing I can't do, someone I can't find. So when it came to transitioning that job from academia to sales and industry, because it's definitely even like not the industry I thought where I'd be doing bench chemistry. It's definitely more corporate, and it's just learning new buzzwords, the new language. And sometimes I joke that my first manager was like my translator. I was like, well, what do you mean? They keep saying this word and everyone's like, this just means this, just flip this. And I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, send this to someone else specifically for this reason. Like everyone just has their own terms. So you just have to learn a new vocabulary for that. And I think the things you can bring from, especially the academic training of a PhD program, is it's very rigorous, right? You're supposed to do things a specific way. I'm sure everybody's PhD advisor wants you to format your slides a specific way. You know, you're doing half of their job sometimes, you know, things like that. And so really what I have been able to transition to is I have all these extra skills, or I came in and even in the corporate setting, I'm like, we don't have an SOP for how to do this. You know, it's not necessarily the SOP for an instrument, but we need to have processes for how everyone communicates or does things in the office and stuff like that. So, I kind of come from bringing those things in, or being able to make a presentation like this with all these visuals and stuff, because we had to do it at the drop of a hat for XYZ reason, or when I was teaching, I had to do things right away. So I think there's all of this stuff that you have skills wise. And as Sandeep was saying, the terms that you can put on, we've been doing all of them, right? Project management, it's your day-to-day life when you're a PhD student, so there's so many things that you're like, I can do all these things, and I just got to go fiddle around on LinkedIn long enough to figure out, oh, that is what I do in this setting. It just has a new name, or I didn't even think that this was a skill. It was just something I had to do. And so using those to help curate your new resume for the application, right? I mean, you're applying to a specific job, you want it to be specific anyways to that job, that company, but it's a different beast when you're in academia versus corporate, let alone, a process chemist position is going to have a different resume or CV, they want more. So knowing that it just takes a little time and an annoying amount of effort, in my opinion, to translate some of these things from what I think is a straightforward logical reason or answer or term for something to whatever funny term someone is using in the industry or that they like or that's on the LinkedIn job description. So that's half the battle, is just, finding that translation, because you have all the skills, everything you do in your day to day, you're like, oh, you don't have that, you don't do that, or that's not something that I'm like, how do they get anything done? They're just flying by the seat of their pants, waiting 3 days for someone to email them back, sometimes, because you learn that we had all these processes and things built in and stuff we did day to day, because that's how science works. And then, they can really help in any setting. So I think knowing that you can bring those things to the table is important, and then just learning to translate, or that it's just a new word.
I think number 5 on Sandeep's list now is going to be translator.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Just the translator, everybody's going to think like, oh, what other language do you speak? And you're like, science. I speak science.
I speak science and I speak corporate,
Yeah.
Those are the two that you need in the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Haley. Crystal, I saw you nodding your head. I got a little head nod to a few things. Would love to hear from you.
So I was everything, Haley, that you echoed, I agree with. It's interesting. We're living in a very different time as it comes to resumes, right? So being specific about those resumes, sending them through those software tools to see how many hits it gets, what percentage, and making sure that you reach that 90%, because now HR is no longer reading through until it hits a certain threshold, and then they're looking at your resume. So it's certainly a different world, but to Haley's point, that really is the beginning steps, is really aligning on what are some of the key critical things that I do that I can translate on this resume that hits every mark, right? Also, don't worry about having another set of eyes look at your resume as well. Someone that's in the industry that can give some feedback. Sandeep, I saw that you put in even some career consultants to really align as a mentee-mentor relationship. But these really are the best resources because I know from my perspective, when I first came out of grad school, it was really hard to kind of figure out, how do I craft my resume enough to really show that I can go straight into industry. And it took some time, right? It didn't happen right off of graduate school. It wasn't until I did a few months into my postdoc where then I was able to launch into the industry. So give yourself time as well. It's not easy. Don't take it to heart. I always say every closed door is just telling me that there's one that's supposed to be opened, and I'll just continue checking which one is for me, and whatever is for me will be for me. So don't be discouraged through the process, because it can be difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know there's so many other things that we could talk about and just information that we could share. I do, just interest of time, want to open it up to Q&A. And I know there's some resources that you all have put together too. So if y'all want to send those to me, we can get those to Lisa and team to send out, or anything that we didn't get to touch on in the panel. If y'all want to send that to me, we'll share it there. So, but thank you all so much for your insight, and we just love to open it to Q&A. I guess I can see
Yep.
there's any questions already in the chat. Or Kate, do you have maybe
Yes.
eyes on that?
We have 2 questions in the Q&A.
Awesome.
One we touched on a little bit before, which was any opportunities for current PhD students in chemistry. So if you were speaking to a current PhD student now, where would you be directing them to look at opportunities?
I'll jump on that first. So I would
so
say,
I was going to say that's Goldie. Goldie, do you want to, if you're okay to unmute, do you want to add more? Because it says that was more for women in chemistry. So I think specifically, go ahead, Goldie.
Hi, sorry for I lost my voice. I meant like currently if any there's like anything for PhD students. I think you kind of mentioned like mentoring, and, excuse me, and the conference and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so the
Great
question more
Okay.
so of like, what does women in chemicals offer
Yeah.
for PhD students? Awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Okay, perfect.
so in just a moment, after we do the Q&A, we'll have a place where you can sign up with your email to share, and we will put you on our sort of first group of students and emerging workforce in women in chemicals. And so you will get direct access to our opportunities that we have, and other pieces. But we do still, Caroline, we have one other question. So if we want to jump out of here.
Can we not ask the question with it? I just thought we'd go ahead and put it up.
It's in, oh, I can put it, it's the same place. So it's all in the same. All right, I think I just changed Menti so that you can put your name and email there. It's all the same board. It's just different slides within the same board for all of the questions we have in the presentation.
I love that. That's perfect. We have several scholars that are on graduate students. Some are getting ready to graduate. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Sign up.
The other question that was in there was, does anybody here have a sponsor or a mentor currently in the industry that's helped you advance, and how did you get in contact with them?
I can jump into this question because having a mentor doesn't matter where are you in your career. Even if you're early career, mid-career, or even executive level, having a mentor is such a, I would say, a blessing in the way that can shape your career. Like when I was choosing, I want to go to grad school or no, I have a mentor, my senior, who was like 3-4 years senior to me. And then I ask why you chose it. So ask the question. So you can, I would rely when you are choosing your mentor, it's not necessary you should have one mentor. You should have more mentor because you will get more perspective from the different mentors. And when I came to Canada, I go to the American Chemical Society and I got my mentor like 14 years ago. I'm still in touch with him. When I was choosing my MBA, I found I go to the LinkedIn, I found the person, the woman who is actually the chemist, but also she was in executive leadership at some of the company, and she did MBA from the same school where I was going. So I connected on the LinkedIn. I said, look, I am a chemist and I think we have the overlap. You were a chemist, you chose MBA. Why did you choose? So I'm in touch with her even now. So it's what Pooja talked about, the relationship. So you can choose your mentor, but choose where you can feel like there is some overlap between the mentor and you. So they can relate to your story. Because when I asked my mentor how I want to go to MBA, and when she started talking to me, she's like, when I'm talking to you, it seems like I am talking to me 10 years ago. You are exactly the same person what I was 10 years ago. And when actually I am doing mentoring to the earlier career PhDs, it feels like when I'm talking to them, I'm talking to myself. So this is how they really love to mentoring when they feel like you are their reflection many years ago. And this is one of the reason I was doing kind of mentorship role with women in chemical, because what Pooja touched there about having a male dominant chemical industry. I am into the surface treatment, which is heavily chemical engineering side, which is heavily male dominant. I am always the one woman. And having women in chemical on my side, women in chemical was a great platform and is a great platform for women in chemicals. And I feel like if you are a woman, like even my first mentor was a man, doesn't really matter, but being a woman, you can get more help. So LinkedIn is your bet. I would, in my understanding, finding a mentor, send a message. I know like nowadays we can leverage AI for many of the reason, but if you keep it more human touch in your language, you will get more answer. And ask simple thing, like relate to their career and ask what you want to do. And all honesty, I'm happy to drop my LinkedIn here. You can ask me any question anytime. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Sandeep. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I can add to that. One of the things, I think LinkedIn is an amazing place to really gain connections for sure. But also these kind of forums, right? Where you're meeting with people that are in the industry, those networking events that you might have at your school. It really is a good place to connect. Because to Sandeep's point, it's really about a mentor identifying, okay, what do I see in you? And so in order to have those conversations, it does preferably in person is best because it is kind of hard to see yourself in someone else until you really have the conversation. And so I would just add these kinds of forums where you get to meet people in the industry. Any networking forums at school would be really where I would go.
I love that. Lisa.
Another thing I would like to add, think interdisciplinary. If you are chemistry, it's not necessary you are going to choose your mentor from chemistry. A biochemist, probably a good mentor for you, because the industry where I am into the chemical engineering industry, but I have organic chemistry background. So just think about the overlap of think about this whole industry is actually the interdisciplinary industry. So you can choose even a mentor who is in the business. So that's my other point I would like to add.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to add just one brief thing. In addition to all these sources, getting a mentor via LinkedIn or Women in Chemicals, alumni groups are a great source for networking. They're always likely to get back to you rather than somebody you email cold. You just have that connection, right, of your alma mater. So that's also another place you can go. And as Sandeep was saying, please, I'm sure all of us can just reach out to any of us on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to help with any further questions that you may have, or schedule a quick chat to talk.
Love that. Yeah. Thank you.
The last thing I'll add, I think the theme you're finding is networking, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, I was assigned this mentor, which my first job I was by my manager, which was really fortunate. And it was more just a co-working relationship where I had dedicated time to talk to her, but it's more just the networking. And so groups, all stuff, and even local. Like this morning, I was at a STEM fair volunteering at the check-in desk, and I met like 10 different people who are working it with me who are from different groups. And so, some of them are business things, some of the outreach that I do, connections, and some are just like people to know in my area because I've lived in the city for only 2 years. But I mean, I think finding in-person events is huge, and even local stuff. If you're like, I'm not sure, but like, hey, it was free, and I can go get a coffee and a pastry in the morning before, I go to my next thing. Like, I think who unfortunately today does get you the job still, and what who you are keeps it. So I think really finding ways to connect and, in your local community or in whatever group you think you want to be moving in. So, find someone who has the job you want or you're interested in, maybe ask or see what things they're involved in on LinkedIn and join those groups as a way. But if it's local, I think that's huge. And for, all of you at Stony Brook, you've got a big city around you to find some things in, you're not in the middle of nowhere. So I think take advantage of in-person local networking just as much as some of these big groups.
Awesome. Well, Kate, I know you got the question. I'm going to go ahead and share this slideshow while you answer. Okay.
And I saw, Lisa, your update there. I think that we'll talk about this as we sort of move through this closing section, and we'll touch on the conference as well. Can you go back one or two? Yes, one. So really quickly, just because we are, as members of Women in Chemicals, trying to build out and better understand the needs of all of you as we introduce the chemical industry, as we talk about the career pathways, we want to see sort of a before and after picture as well. So it's really helpful for us if you can take a moment and based on, after talking about it, after seeing this deck and hearing from these incredible women, what careers are you most interested in that you heard about today, if any? And we'll give you just a couple minutes, maybe 30 seconds to add one or two. You can add as many as you want, or if you're not sure, you could just say, I'm going to look into it, or I don't think the chemical industry is for me. Hopefully that's not your response, but we appreciate the candor, and we'll use it all to help improve our programming that we provide at no cost for students like you. And just so the QR code is there, and there's also a direct link. So if you want to do it on your computer instead of through your phone, you can do it that way as well. All right, and I'm going to give it just another minute. And then the second question, this one's the really important one. Do you plan to explore open roles in the chemical industry after attending this event? So I know before we had some people speak to, they weren't sure if they were going to, they had never looked into the chemical industry, but where are you now? Have you shifted in that spectrum of awareness and interest, or are you still sort of in the same space? I like it. I see some shifts. See some people replying that are interested in some new and different things. And we really appreciate all of your participation and the information you can give us so we can keep improving our programs to support you all. All right. And one more time, I'm going to put up, if you want to get any more information specific to opportunities for PhD students, internships, all of those sorts of things, please use that same link to share your name and email address, and we will add you to our student updates list. And then we can go to the next slide. So a couple of things. One, as we said, like, it's really important to everyone at Women in Chemicals, my bad. It's really important to everyone at Women in Chemicals that membership is always not associated with a cost, that we can cover all of these resources, all of this community and support with everybody who wants that access, needs that support, needs that community, can join without paying anything. And so the only thing that costs something is our conference, because it costs a lot of money to put on a conference, as you may know. But thank you to these sponsors. Also, some great names to look at if you are interested in finding careers, to check on those sites. So if you want to screenshot this is also a great place to start if you're suddenly excited about opportunities. And we're going to go to the next slide.
You can also find a handful of these on our website and links directly to their career pages too. So great
Sure.
avenue to explore some jobs as well.
And so we just talked about this. You have this open on your phone if you're in that Menti. We can go to the next slide. And another couple other options, you can become a member now of Women in Chemicals. We'd love to have you. Keep hanging out with us. And then also we are starting to aggregate and share opportunities specific to different membership groups and students and different levels of education on our LinkedIn. So we'll be doing opportunity roundups there. That would be a really good source for you to see opportunities across multiple industry partners as they emerge, as they are listed, fresh off the press. And so please feel free to connect there as well. Follow us on LinkedIn. And then I don't recall if we did include a conference slide, Caroline. I think we might not have.
No.
That's okay. I can briefly.
Yeah, I was going to say, but Pooja is here and is the perfect person to speak to that.
Yes. So the opportunity, I guess, really for PhD and postdocs is really you would learn a lot of different things, about the industry, where it is and where it's going and how to handle that. There's so many different great topics that we've come up with for this year. There's also a session on the developing stages of women's health, pregnancy and the plant all the way through menopause, and how to handle that at work as well and balancing that. How to navigate the workplace. Basically, in your early career, you don't know about, like we were saying, there are all these terms. You speak corporate now, right? Versus science and that transition. So there's just a whole bunch of different things. I mean, in addition to networking, you could possibly find your mentor there as well. There's so many great women there ready to support you on your career journey, no matter where you are. Whether early stage up to executive. So please check out our website. We have the full agenda listed there. And also, again, please reach out to me anytime you have any questions about conference for Women in Chemicals or PhD or career, anything. Happy to help in any way I can or guide you to the right resource.
I would like to add one point since we are talking about the conference. The one thing that I can assure you about the Women in Chemical Conference, it's not your typical academic conference. This is a great place for networking. It's not what you expect I know, like when we are PhD, we are very much familiar going to the academics conferences, and we expect Women in Chemical Conference probably the similar. You are going to have amazing time. And this is the best place for networking. What I find the difference between the normal academic conference and this conference, it's every woman from executive level to mid-career open to mentor a career woman. So this is how the open environment you are going to get at Women in Chemical Conference. So I'm really encouraging whoever in your network and a grad student, I would say must attend this conference because you will get exposure most about the networking, because networking is something that's so hard to do, because when you are being PhD, I would say when I was doing it was the most difficult part for me, networking, which is still for everyone, I would say, because you are worried about, will I get the answer back? Will I not? But when you are face to face at the conference, it became so easy, so easy.
I think that's a really good point, Sandeep. And we are up against time. And so I have one more comment. If you will give me 30 seconds, Lisa, which is for the conference, having come from a space where I did chemical research. So I attended conferences in academia. I worked alongside the chemical industry, and I've attended a number of industry meetings and conferences, as well as a number of educator conferences, which are sort of more of a party than the other ones. But if I had to choose my preference, but Women in Chemicals is the first conference I ever attended where it felt like in all of the new conversations I was having with people, everyone I talked to was actively listening and trying to think of experience to call from to support me rather than listening and trying to figure out what they could get out of the conversation. It's the only conference I've ever attended where it really felt like every single connection I was making was somebody who wanted to figure out how they could support the person they were talking to.
I love that. Thank you. Well, thank you all so much for all of your insight and sharing your stories here with this group. Lisa, thank you so much for organizing this and allowing us the platform to share the stories and share more about women in chemicals and the opportunities in the chemical industry as a whole. We really appreciate your time and effort
Oh,
and
please.
planning.
Thank you for all of you joining us today. This has been fabulous. You are, each and every one of you are inspirational. And we did record this and we are going to share this with our larger community as well, where I do think people will watch. And I think there's some really great opportunities for us to collaborate, even more specifically for graduate students, as well as I'm even thinking my brain is going, we have summer undergraduate programs. So like I think there's ways that we can do more. I did also see you have a fabulous scholarship program that applications are due March 31st. So I do believe that some of our student guests may be eligible to apply. So that's an opportunity for our
Yep.
scholars as well.
That scholarship is open for any undergraduate degree
Ah,
seeking student.
okay.
Unfortunately, we're not open to
To
higher
graduate
level
students.
degrees at
So
this
it,
moment.
okay, got it. I
But
thought it
please
was.
do share it with your undergraduates. We would
I
love
will. I will. Thank you
to
for
have
that
it. Yeah,
clarification. I appreciate it. But I do look forward to connecting more and having more conversations. But thank you so much for all of your time today.
Awesome.
thank
Well,
you to all
thank
of you.
you.
Thank
Have a
you. We
wonderful
will
rest of y'all's
share
day.
everything too.
Wonderful.
Is
Thank you.
there a student discount for the conference?
Let us get back to you.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we can take any of that information. Let me know and we can share it out.
great.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Ah, there we go. Thank you again. This was fantastic. Oh, I think we lost Caroline. I was going to also hopefully be able to.
We did. I can check in with her now. Do you want
Yeah,
to
I
stop
this
yeah, there we go.
I'm gonna
Can we stop the recording?
yeah.